how I got caught cheating on my husband, and what happened after. I always thought I was clever enough to keep my secret safe, but life has a funny way of teaching you that no one is as clever as they think they are. My name is Emily, and I made the worst mistake of my life when I cheated on my husband. What I thought would be a brief, meaningless affair ended up shattering everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and myself. And the worst part? I got caught. I was married to David for almost 7 years. Our relationship was built on mutual respect, deep love, and shared values. We were that couple that everyone looked at and thought, they have it all together. But behind the picture-perfect facade, things were beginning to fall apart. I didn't realize it at the time, but the cracks in our marriage were already there, hidden beneath the surface, just waiting to split wide open. David worked long hours as an architect, and I was a marketing manager at a small but growing tech company. We didn't have kids, so it was just the two of us. At first, everything was great. We made time for each other, went on spontaneous trips, and talked about our dreams for the future. But as the years passed, I noticed a shift. David became more focused on his work, and I felt more isolated. I wanted to connect with him, but it was like he was always too tired, too preoccupied with his next big project. I didn't want to admit it, but I was lonely. I missed the intimacy we once had, the deep conversations, and the feeling that I was truly seen and heard. That's when I met Ethan. Ethan worked at a coffee shop near my office. He was charismatic, funny, and full of energy. We met one morning when I stopped by for my usual cup of coffee. He gave me a smile and asked how my day was going, and for some reason, I felt this immediate connection. I brushed it off at first. He was just a guy at a coffee shop, right? But over the next few weeks, I found myself going to that same coffee shop more often, hoping to bump into him. And when I did, we'd talk. At first, it was just small talk about the weather or his shift schedule, but it quickly escalated. We started talking about our lives, our struggles, and our dreams. Ethan was a breath of fresh air in my otherwise monotonous life. He listened to me, really listened. He made me feel special, like I mattered. And that's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. One evening, after a particularly tough day at work, I found myself at the coffee shop, pouring my heart out to Ethan. Without thinking, I kissed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I'd been thinking about for weeks. It just happened, and I told myself it didn't mean anything. It was just a kiss. A stupid, impulsive mistake. But it didn't stop there. What began as a kiss quickly turned into something more. Ethan and I started having an affair. I told myself it was just physical, something to make me feel wanted, something to make me feel alive again. I convinced myself that I wasn't doing anything wrong. After all, David was so focused on work that he barely noticed I was around. I was just filling a void. That's what I told myself anyway. For months, I kept the affair hidden. I would sneak around, making sure David never found out. I would go to Ethan's apartment late at night, and during the day, I'd act like everything was fine. I became an expert at hiding my tracks. But as much as I tried to keep everything under wraps, I was never truly at peace. The guilt gnawed at me. It ate away at my conscience, but I pushed it aside, telling myself that I deserved this. But then, one fateful evening, everything came crashing down. David came home early from work, and I wasn't expecting him. I had just gotten out of the shower, and I was in the middle of texting Ethan when I heard the door open. My heart stopped. I quickly tried to hide my phone, but it was too late. David had already seen the message. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, his face pale, his eyes wide with shock and hurt. I could see the pain in his eyes, and it felt like someone had just ripped my heart out of my chest. "Emily," he said quietly, his voice trembling. "Is this what's been going on? Are you cheating on me?" I didn't know how to respond. The words caught in my throat, and I could feel the weight of everything I had done. I wanted to explain myself, to beg for forgiveness, but I knew that nothing I said could undo the damage. The truth was, I had betrayed him. I had broken the trust we had built over years of marriage. Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded. Yes, I'm so sorry, David. I made a horrible mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was lonely, and I didn't know how to fix it. But I never wanted to lose you. Please believe me." David's face contorted in pain. "How could you do this to me, Emily? How could you betray me like this?" I wanted to reach out to him, to hold him, to make everything right. But I knew it was too late for that. I had already destroyed the trust between us. The foundation of our relationship had been shattered, and nothing could put it back together again. David didn't say much more that night. He just left the house and stayed with a friend. I spent the night alone, consumed by guilt and regret. The next few days were a blur. David and I didn't speak much. He was distant, hurt, and angry. He had every right to be. I tried to explain myself over and over, but the words always felt empty. I knew I had to face the consequences of my actions, but I didn't know how to fix things. Was it even possible to rebuild the trust I had broken? We eventually went to couples counseling, and for a while, it seemed like we might be able to work through things. But I could tell that David was never truly the same. He would try to smile, try to make small talk, but the spark in his eyes was gone. The warmth in our marriage had been replaced with coldness, and no matter how hard we tried, it seemed like we couldn't get it back. One day, after a particularly difficult session with our therapist, David sat me down and said something that changed everything. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again, Emily. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way." I didn't know what to say. I had hoped, in the back of my mind, that we could somehow make it through this. But the reality was, I had broken something that might never be fixed. The hurt in David's eyes was too much for me to ignore. And though I loved him deeply, I knew that the road to healing would be long, maybe even impossible. It's been a year since that night. David and I are still together, but I know things will never be the same. He says he's forgiven me, but I can see the distance between us. The affair is always there, lurking in the background, a constant reminder of what I did. We've tried to move forward, but sometimes, I wonder if it's enough. I still love David, I still want to be with him, but I can't help but feel like I've lost something I can never get back. I don't know if our marriage will survive this, but every day, I try to show him that I'm committed to rebuilding what I've broken. But I'll never forget that moment when he found out. It's a moment that changed everything. And now, I have to live with the consequences of my actions. Will we ever be the same again? I don't know, but all I can do is keep trying, keep showing up, and hope that one day, he'll look at me the way he used to.